30 minutes. Like, that's a long time. And I was like, oh, no. Seconds. 30 seconds, not 30 minutes. Like, nobody's got time to make out for 30 minutes a day every single day. Hello and welcome to the Pillow Talks podcast. We're your hosts, Vanessa
and Xander Marin.
I'm a sex therapist with over 20 years of experience.
And I'm just a regular dude. We share the ups and downs in our relationship while giving you step-by-step techniques for improving yours.
Make sure you subscribe for your weekly double date full of totally doable sex tips, practical relationship advice, hilarious and honest stories of what really goes on behind closed bedroom doors, and so much more. It's the sex education you wish you'd had. Thanks to Storyworth for supporting Pillow Talks. Storyworth is a meaningful gift you and your family can treasure forever, and you can get started right away. Go to storyworth.com/pillow to get $10 off your first purchase. And thanks to Jeju, the luxury sex toy brand, for supporting Pillow Talks. Go to jejoue.com for their Black Friday sale that runs from November 10th to November 30th for up to 50% off. And thanks to Babbel for supporting our show. Babbel's 10-minute lessons make it the perfect way to learn a new language on the go. Here's a special limited time deal for our listeners to get you started right now. Get 55% off your Babbel subscription, but only for our listeners at babbel.com/pillow. Today's episode is all about the most viral piece of content that we have ever made. We made a video about it. We posted it on both Instagram and TikTok. Currently, it has 8.4 million views on TikTok, 9.5 million views on Instagram.
Damn.
This video was covered on morning shows like Kelly and Ryan and the Drew Barrymore Show. We did interviews about it with Newsweek, Well and Good, Pop Sugar, Huffington Post, and the New York frickin' Times.
Who literally wrote an article basically defining a term that we coined.
It's been wild. And this whole thing is all about how Xander and I make out before bed every single night. That's it. A little 10 to 20 second ritual that we have. All of this press has come out of that. So when we originally made the video, we thought it was interesting and useful. Like, we wouldn't have made a video if we didn't.
But I think we just looked at it like any other piece of content that we create for social media. We were not like, oh yeah, this one is gonna slay. It was just
no, we had no clue.
It was just like, oh, okay, this is one of the, I don't even know how many things we prep for each week, but it's just like, if there are 10 things that we're prepping for the week, this is just one of 10. It didn't stand out to me, and I don't think it stood out to you as anything more or less special than any of the others. I mean, that's kind of social media for you.
Yeah, you never know what thing is going to strike a nerve with people, but clearly it did. And we've gotten so many questions about our little makeout ritual. So we decided we've got to break it all down for you in a full podcast episode. We're going to talk about why we started doing it in the first place, the benefits of doing it that we've noticed, all of your questions about it. So we put up a question box on Instagram. We said, hit us with your questions. What is confusing? What don't you understand? What are you afraid of? Why don't you want to try it? We're answering all of those questions. And we even have some of your stories about what it has done for your relationship.
But first, we got to read you our review of the week. This week, much more confidence and understanding. Hello. I love when people start with a nice greeting.
They start a review with a greeting.
Or it's
very precious.
It's kind of like a letter, but a very casual letter, maybe an email to a friend. Hello. Hi. Hello. Hi.
It's like a text that my dad sends. It's going to be signed love, Dad.
Yeah, except the difference between this and your dad is that this is all one paragraph. Your dad would have separated all of these.
My dad likes to write text messages in, we call them dad's haikus. Yeah, he doesn't use periods. He just hits return, so it goes to a new line.
Yeah, is it a comma? Is it a period? Is it a new paragraph?
You'll never know.
You'll never know. And he probably doesn't either. All right, hello. I heard Vanessa on another podcast a while back and loved it. So I searched for Pillow Talks and began listening. I've been married for 22 years and I'm rather introverted. My husband is the complete opposite. I was raised with conservative parents who didn't openly talk about sex or relationships, so I was pretty closed off and embarrassed around the topic and doing it. After listening to many episodes, I've been able to be more expressive and vulnerable with my husband. I've always loved being intimate with him, but shy at the same time. Things are beginning to change, and we both notice and love it. Thank you both for the funny, honest, and raw conversations you've shared with us all weekly. It has really, really helped me open up.
What a wonderful review.
That one is.
Thank you so much for taking time to leave reviews. Reviews make such a big difference for the podcast. We've talked a lot about how reviews are the best way to help a podcast grow by reaching new people. Spotify and Apple are more likely to share it with people if there are more reviews and better reviews. But I also wanted to share this week, we read your reviews every single week in our team meetings. And internally as a team, we really make a lot of changes to the podcast based on the reviews. What are people responding to? What topics do they like? What do they want us to cover more of?
Also, it's such a great way for us to, make sure that our team is also aware of the impact that not only we, but they are making on all of you and on the world. I think it's so important. When you work for someone, it's easy to get caught up in the minutia of just the day-to-day stuff. And Vanessa and Xander want this, so I have to do that for them. But we use this as an opportunity to kind of open their mind in terms of, hey, there's all this stuff going on outside of our day-to-day stuff. There's such big impacts that we're making. It kind of helps, give people a more, 10,000 foot view instead of the 10-foot view.
Yeah, so leaving reviews, it really does help us create a better podcast for you. And so we're so appreciative of you taking the time to do it. So here's how you leave a review. Go over to the main Pillow Talks page on Apple Podcasts, scroll to the bottom, and you'll see the review section there. And we do a giveaway every single week to say thank you for taking the time to leave the reviews. So if you hear your review read in an episode, you can email us at info@vmtherapy.com and you will win a prize. You'll get to choose your prize, actually, your choice of one of our masterclasses that you will get absolutely for free, just as our way of saying thank you. All right, so let's get into the episode. We thought that the best thing to do would just be to play you the audio of the reel so you can hear the full thing, and then we can dissect it more together.
And advance apologies. It's going to sound really bad compared to what you are hearing of us through these nice podcast mics. This is recorded in our bathroom with the iPhone microphone a bit far away from Vanessa. It's a tile bathroom. It's really echoey.
Very echoey.
So this might be a little jolting.
A little behind the scenes too. I was balancing that phone on a Kleenex box because we didn't have anything nice enough to that would fit on the ledge of the sink and hold the camera.
Oh yeah, let me set the scene. This is a Get Ready With Me video. I think, was this the first Get Ready With Me video you ever?
I think it was actually.
Filmed? So it's actually really challenging to film Get Ready With Me videos because you have to find a way to, you have to be looking in a mirror so that you can see what you are doing. And you have to find a way to have the camera filming you looking in the mirror, but you can't have the camera visible in the. It's just a whole thing where it's just challenging to get set up right, and to kind of execute these videos. It's a little more challenging than they look. I think a lot of people. I've always seen Get Ready With Me stuff, whether it's actually getting ready in the bathroom or I'm in the car filming or whatever, and I'm there's part of you that's that's just lazy content creation, right? You're multitasking, but
no, you're not.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe some people are actually multitasking, but it takes just as long. It's more of let me give you something to watch while I am creating content.
All right, let's play the clip. Get ready with me while I talk about why my husband and I make out every single night. So here's how it usually goes in long-term relationships. When you first start dating each other, it's you can't keep your hands off each other, right? You're always touching, always kissing. But the pattern for most people is that once they get into a long-term relationship, they really stop touching and kissing so much. And eventually it gets to the point where the only time that you're really kissing each other is when you're trying to initiate sex. But what happens for a lot of people, especially if you're the lower sex drive partner in the relationship, is that you start becoming avoidant of any sort of touch or kissing. Like if you're not wildly in the mood, you don't want your partner to kiss you and think that it's going to lead to more, right? But this only further intensifies that connection that kissing has to or is supposed to lead to sex. And this can even lead to what I call the bristle reaction, which is when you become so hypervigilant to your partner's touch or kisses that you actually can feel yourself bristle whenever your partner comes in to try to make contact with you. So the intent behind our nightly makeout sessions is to actually break the connection between making out and sex. This nightly routine has taken the pressure off of us to have sex if we start making out, and it's really allowed us to enjoy making out just for the sake of making out. So we originally started this ritual a couple of years ago, and we decided to just try it out as an experiment. Like, let's see how this goes. Will we like it? Will we want to continue doing it? And it went so well for us that we have continued to do it just about every single night. We will talk about the exceptions in a minute. So let's talk about some of the benefits that we've noticed for ourselves and that we think other people can experience as well. So one thing that happened for us is that it really broke that connection that kissing is supposed to lead to sex. So we fell into a pattern that I think most couples in long-term relationships do, which is that we really stopped kissing as much outside of sex. Like we definitely kissed during sex, right in the lead up to sex, but we weren't kissing very much outside of the bedroom. And I remember realizing that one day and feeling so sad about that because the night that Xander and I met, we made out and just made out, like a little touching, but pretty much just made out for 6 hours.
It was a bit long.
It was excessive.
We might not do that again.
I've never done that with somebody else before. We have never repeated that. I don't know what got into us that night. It was exciting. The kissing chemistry was there. We did it for hours and hours and hours. And we never did it that much ever again. But like we definitely made out a lot in the early stages of our relationship. And I really loved that. I mean, I think especially in the early stages of a relationship, it feels so exciting to just make out. It kind of, for me, it like recalls being a teenager again, that just like that time in your life when kissing is just the most exciting, best thing ever. It was just so fun. But as time went on, we were doing that less and less and less to the point where it was like pretty much just around sex.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people have that experience of early on in their relationship, you make out at times when like you're for sure not going to have sex. You're totally not able to have sex. You might be like taking a walk on the beach and then you start kissing or whatever. Like, so we do that so often early on in a relationship. And then at a certain point, it just kind of, that's gone.
Yeah. And so because of that, we had made this connection between like, oh, if we're making out, it's supposed to lead to sex.
Yeah. If someone slips the tongue, it's like it's on.
And it would, but like, no, it wasn't it's on in an exciting way. It was like, ooh, he's slipping me the tongue and I'm not like ready for that. I don't think I want to have sex right now. So like, let me pull away or try to stop this. And yeah, sometimes it could feel like pressure and, you know, just, it had this kind of heavy tone to it.
Yeah. It was charged with something.
So the reason that I suggested this makeout in the first place is I was like, you know, I don't want us to only make out around sex and I don't want to feel any sort of pressure. Not that you were ever like pressuring me, but just this internal pressure. It's like, I just don't want to feel these weird vibes around making out when it's been like such a central part of our love story.
Yeah, I mean, I think you didn't want that for either of us. Like, I think that was something that was coming up for both of us was like, if I slipped you a kiss or slipped you the tongue, or if you slipped me a kiss with the tongue, like, both of us, the opposite person would be thinking, oh, is she or is he trying to initiate sex? Like, do I want that? I don't know. And then it's like, that's like bad vibes going into a kiss anyway, if you're like, half in, half out.
Oh,
Not in a sexy way.
We're going to talk about this more when we get to your questions about our nightly makeout. But, one of the biggest questions that came up was like, well, isn't this awkward? And I'm like, kissing was awkward for us before we started doing it because there was that unspoken like, wait, are you trying to initiate? Are you into this? Are we, are we doing it? Are we not doing it? So anyways, that was one of the main benefits for us is that it broke this connection or this expectation that kissing was supposed to lead to sex.
And it made kissing less awkward because of that, like what you just said.
Yeah, absolutely. Another dynamic that happened is that it also eliminated the bristle reaction. So we just quickly touched on the bristle reaction in the video. We actually have an entire episode just about that. That's episode 99. So I won't go into it in too much detail other than just kind of reiterating what was in the video. Like the bristle reaction is the name that we came up with for when you feel your body recoil from your partner's touch.
It's kind of just like a more extreme version of what you were just describing of, in the example of like, I kiss you and then immediately you start thinking, oh, is he wanting more? Do I want more? I don't know. Maybe I should kind of pull away. It's like the next level of that, where whether it's a kiss or a touch or a hug, where you kind of, instead of thinking, I'm not sure about that, it's like you physically manifest that energy. And it's like, ooh, you kind of feel like, okay, I better kind of back away slowly. Also, when it comes to making out before bed, a lot of people get focused on the physical aspect of it because, technically kissing is a physical thing, but it actually added a lot more emotional intimacy into our relationship for a couple of reasons. I mean, first of all, because we had kind of broken that connection between kissing and sex and eliminated the bristle reaction, like that opened the door for there to be, more making out, which can cause more intimacy in general and more emotional intimacy. It's like this sweet moment of connection right before bed, just being able to show each other that love and then feel that love, feel that emotional connection. And also it just allows you to be more present in the moment when you're kissing. I think that's, kind of like the very first thing you were saying, Vanessa, is before when we had this straight line connection of like kissing goes to sex, you start kissing and you're thinking ahead to all of this stuff like, do I or don't I want sex? Okay. Oh, it looks like maybe we're going to do it. Like, okay, like, should we go into the other room? And like, what order of things do we want to do? Like, how do I want to get this started? How am I feeling? And it's so nice to just break all of that and just get focused on like your partner, being present with your partner, the sensations of kissing. And we both were like, wow, everything feels so much more emotionally connected.
Yeah, I think for me, a big part of the emotional connection was that it started to very quickly feel like this secret special thing that we did. And obviously we turned it into this reel and now millions of people know that we do it. But it just felt like this, it was like our own little special thing that we did. And I think having this kind of like internal language in a relationship is something that creates that feeling of more emotional intimacy. These little like inside jokes and secrets.
It's like, hey, here's this cool thing that we do that we know most people don't do. And then because of all that emotional intimacy that we felt, I think that really helped us sleep better too. Every night it would be like, okay, yeah, we're going to do this nice thing. We're going to bed on such a positive note. We're both feeling so connected and in love with each other. It just feels like a really great like punctuation mark at the end of the day. And
a calm punctuation mark.
Yeah, like a nice calm period, not an exclamation mark. I mean, yeah, I don't know. For me, it just was so like, I just felt like, okay, great. Like, the day is really positive. It's been settled. There's no more expectations. We're just going to bed. It's just really nice going to bed, kind of feeling free.
Another benefit that came up for me was just getting my enjoyment of kissing back. Like
me too.
Having that experience of just kissing just for the sake of kissing. Like it just felt so much more enjoyable and kind of tied in with what you were saying about being more present in the moment. I think there's a way that when it's not going to lead to sex, like we're just making out just to make out, it lets you enjoy that act so much more rather than, like you were kind of saying, being up in your head of like, oh, is this supposed to lead to more kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I can also totally acknowledge how I just had started to enjoy kissing less and less because of all this stuff that we were just talking about. Mm-hmm. Like, obviously when I started making out with people like in high school or whatever it was, like that was obviously very exciting, right? It's a brand new thing. But, even through the time that we met, like it was still an exciting thing. And as more and more time went on, it was just like, yeah, I think if I were to kind of rank the things that I enjoyed sexually, making out would have been quite low because it just didn't feel exciting anymore. And I love it now. It's great.
It also led to more sexual tension. And this is another question that we're going to address in just a minute here. Like a lot of people were very worried about the like pressure for it to lead to more type of thing. But the way that we set it up, like knowing, okay, we're just making out, it's just for the sake of doing this little ritual, like it did create a little bit of sexual tension sometimes. And again, because it forces you to be more present in the moment with the kiss and like really enjoying and experiencing and savoring that kiss, that it did create like some sexual tension and excitement. Like I found myself being turned on by our kisses in a way that I hadn't in a very long time. So we'll talk in a minute about how to navigate all of that tension, but it was fun to feel that sexual tension with you again, especially after like, you know, we've been together almost 16 years.
Yeah, and I think that it helped me at least. I don't want to speak for you, but it helped me learn to appreciate that sexual tension more. Mm-hmm. I think that after a long time in a long-term relationship, you almost start to feel like sexual tension is a bad thing. Like, oh, someone must want something that someone else doesn't want, or like it takes on this negative tone. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, like some needs are going unmet or something. And it's more of a like, I want to avoid sexual tension at all costs. But if you think back to the beginning of a relationship or just maybe in your younger years, like sexual tension is a totally positive thing. Like it's an exciting thing. Yeah. It makes the act of sex so much more exciting when there's a bit of tension or anticipation. And then finally, I want to say, and we will talk more in detail about this, but despite the fact that we said that we wanted to break the connection between kissing leading to sex, we did find that this ritual did actually create more opportunities for us to have sex. And this wasn't an immediate thing, and we'll talk about this more later, don't worry. But what we found was that we actually did start having a lot more sex as a result of this ritual. All right, now that we have described what this has done for us, it's time to get into all the questions. And I'm really excited for this because we obviously got a million questions in the comments for that TikTok and for the Instagram. And we've tried to answer a lot of them, but it's kind of hard to answer some of these questions in like a short comment or even in an Instagram story. So these are like the most common, the most popular questions that people have asked. And I'm excited to have a good opportunity to really just describe this in detail. So, number one, let's start with the basics, Vanessa. Define what a makeout is.
Okay, this was something that I never expected to get from people. Like, this is one of the most popular questions that we get asked about it. And I really didn't think there was going to be so much confusion about what a makeout is. So our definition is just that it involves some form of tongue contact. So if you have a different definition of makeout, let us know. Come on over to Instagram. We're at Vanessa and Xander. Let us know what your definition is. But that's been our only rule there. It's like, there's just got to be a little tongue action.
Yeah, okay. But so then how long do we actually do it for?
Okay, we don't have a rule about this, but it's around 30 seconds most nights. If we are enjoying it and feeling excited, we'll go a little longer. If we are exhausted or just not like really feeling it, it can be 10 seconds. It's really not like we don't have any rules about it. It's just kind of like we see what we're feeling in the moment. But one of the funny things that happened is right when this first started taking off, Well and Good was one of the first media publications to like reach out and ask to do an interview about it. And so I got on the phone with this reporter and she's like, I have to tell you, like, we have been hotly debating this in the office. Like, we're on the Slack thread. Like, some people just absolutely hate this idea. Some people really love it. But like, it's bringing up some strong opinions. And like, we're just shocked at like how you managed to find the time to do this. And I was feeling so confused listening to her. Like, what is she talking about? Like, I didn't think there'd be like this strong of feelings about it. And anyway, she's like, 30 minutes. Like, that's a long time. And I was like, oh, no. seconds. 30 seconds, not 30 minutes. Like, nobody's got time to make out for 30 minutes a day every single day.
Yeah,
right before bed? Hell no.
Yeah, I think that you had said seconds in the TikTok, and at the very least, like in comments, we had kind of said like, oh, 10 to 30 seconds is how long we usually do it. And this sounds like a bad game of telephone. Like one person read it and like didn't really internalize it right and was like, oh my God, these guys are saying do it for 30 minutes. And then it's like off to the races on the Well and Good Slack there.
Yeah, they were very upset. And I was like, no,
oh God,
please tell people it's only 30 seconds.
Yeah, like for the last week, we've been arguing about the wrong thing.
All right, Xander, I'll hit you with the next question. Is it awkward getting it started every night? So I know I already talked about how kissing was actually more awkward for us when there was that kind of unspoken tension of like, are we going to, are we not going to? But yeah, these days, how does it feel for you?
These days, there's zero awkwardness. It's just a habit. It's a ritual. It's something that we do. It feels awkward if we were to not do it.
Okay, what about like when we first started doing it? Do you remember, like, did it feel awkward to like, okay, we're going to try this new thing. We're going to do it every night?
Yes, it did. Because it took me a while, at least, to really break that connection. There was the part of me that was like, oh, okay, we're saying that we're going to do this, but like, my brain was still wired to associate, oh, okay, I feel a tongue in my mouth, and now I'm thinking, like sex. Do I want sex? I'm reading into like, oh, well, she's still kissing me. Does that mean she wants to go longer? Well, what does that say about me? And so I would say it took me a couple of weeks to really start to quiet my mind and be able to be truly present in the moment. It does take a little while. So that part of it was awkward for sure. But that awkwardness faded really fast once I became able to just trust, like, oh yeah, this is what we're doing. This is all we are doing, and to really enjoy it.
Well, I don't know if you'll remember like how you felt back then, but do you remember if you ever wanted to stop doing it? Like, was there a part of you that was like, this is dumb, or this is just confusing, or whatever?
God, I don't think so. What I do remember is before we started doing this, like in this format, I do remember that probably even for a couple of years, I think that I remember you initiating a conversation a number of times talking about missing making out and how it'd be fun to make out more. Mm-hmm. And we would talk about it. And, we would talk about like, oh yeah, well, okay, yeah, like let's try that or let's do that. But it was never in the context of like, oh, like let's do it in this structured way. And I remember I definitely felt whenever we talked about it, like, oh yeah, that's what she's saying now, but like it's going to be awkward when we do it because what about the, the sex stuff and blah, blah, blah. Like, mm-hmm. So I definitely was doubtful about that when we talked about it before it was in the context of like doing this makeout ritual.
Okay. Well, here, this next question is pretty similar. So let me ask it to you now. Like, doesn't it make affection feel like a chore and not enjoyable?
No, it doesn't. We get this question so much from people. I mean, we also get this question just about sex in general. Like, oh, well, because Vanessa's a sex therapist and you talk about sex on Instagram, does having sex therefore somehow feel like a chore because it's something you have to do for your job?
Well, I think this is even broader than that. I mean, I think this is related to what we call the fucking fairy tale from our book, Sex Talks, the 5 conversations that will transform your love life. We talk about this fairy tale version of sex that we've all been taught to believe or like taught to expect, mm-hmm. where nobody has to talk about sex. Everything just happens spontaneously and effortlessly and perfectly. And so having to have any sort of like intention around sex or communication or even, oh my God, structure around sex turns it into a chore and makes it feel like not special and it's not the way it's supposed to be. And so I grew up believing that sex was supposed to be like that as well. I have struggled with that in my own ways, so I feel a lot of sympathy for it. And I also realize at this point that the fucking fairy tale is complete and utter bullshit. Like, what else in our lives do we expect should just happen effortlessly and perfectly with zero effort, zero communication involved? Like, we don't put that level of pressure on anything else in our life. And I think it's just an incredibly unrealistic expectation to have of our sex life. Like, if intimacy is important to us, if our connection with our partner is important to us, why shouldn't we put some effort into it? Why shouldn't we try?
Yeah, I mean, I'd flip this question around and be like, what else in your life is enjoyable? And like, does it feel like a chore when you have to like make a plan or a schedule to do those things? Like, I love surfing. I go surfing as much as I can. I pretty much never go surfing spontaneously. Like, I plan for it. Like, I'm looking at the forecast the night before or multiple days before, and like, oh yeah, it looks like it's going to be good this morning. It looks like it's going to be good that afternoon. Like, is it going to fit? Do I have enough time in my schedule? Maybe I could move a meeting around. The night before, like, I'm making sure I have food and water and like all my gear ready to go so that I can like get in the car as quickly as possible. That doesn't make the surfing any less enjoyable. And I just don't understand how this isn't the same kind of thing. Like, the stuff that we do that's important to us, that we like to do, like, it is enjoyable in and of itself. It doesn't matter like how we get to the place of doing it. So yeah. And also, I mean, the other thing about it is it's like, I mean, I love Vanessa. I got into a relationship and I got married to Vanessa because I love her, and I kissing is a way that we show love. Like, why would I not want to do that thing? I mean, yeah, like, if I do think that, yes, if it feels like a chore and not enjoyable, oh God, I have to kiss my partner. Like, I might invite you to do some personal work on like what's coming up for you.
I think another comparison that comes up for me is around date night. Like, if you have a ritual around date night, if it's like every Saturday night we go out to dinner and we go to our favorite place, or we try a new restaurant every single time, or whatever it is, like, having a ritual around date night, that feels so special and like sweet and exciting. You wouldn't ever leave date night. You would never be like, oh, we can't plan date night. Like, ugh, if we plan date night, that makes it a chore and not enjoyable. Or like, ugh, we have to do date night every Saturday. Like, come on. So why can't we have that same sort of attitude around like that little bit of physical and emotional intimacy too? Before we go any further, we want to tell you a little bit more about our partners, because without their support, Pillow Talks would not be possible. So first up, I want to tell you about Storyworth. I have actually been getting so many DMs in the last couple of weeks of people asking us for our Storyworth code because the holidays are here. People want a meaningful gift, and Storyworth is such a great, meaningful gift that you can give to your loved ones this holiday season. So if you're spending time with your family during the holidays, chances are you're going to hear a lot of stories, the ones you love to hear, the ones you've heard many times. If you've never heard of Storyworth before, it's a really unique concept. So every single week, Storyworth emails your loved one a single life-related question that you get to pick ahead of time. So examples are like, what's the bravest thing you've ever done? Or what's the furthest you've ever traveled? So they reply with a story. After a year, Storyworth compiles all of their stories, their memories, and even photos if you want to add them, and they create this incredible hardcover book. We signed my mom and dad up for this last year. We're just about at the end of the year, and so we're going to get their book. They've been doing this for the entire year. They've been loving it. I think it's just been so much fun for them to remember memories. Like, sometimes there's stories that are those classic family stories that we've told a million times, and like you still love them even after hearing them a million times. And sometimes they're getting reminded of memories that they have never told us before. So it's been this really fun experience for them. They loved receiving it as a gift, and I am just dying to get to see the keepsake book that comes out of the entire process. With Storyworth, I'm giving those I love most a thoughtful, personal gift from the heart and preserving their memories and stories for years to come. Get started right away by going to storyworth.com/pillow. You'll get $10 off your first purchase. That's STORYWORTH.com/pillow for $10 off. And let me tell you a little bit more about Jeju. Jeju is a premium sex toy company that has been around since 2005. And I have to tell you, I am extremely picky about the sex toy companies that I recommend. I'm not going to name names, but there are a lot of companies out there that are making toys that are either very low quality or actually made with materials that are not safe for your body. So I have tested just about every single toy that's out there for years and years and years. And for a very long time, Jeju has been one of the few companies that I recommend. And this has been long before they were a podcast sponsor. We only took them on as a sponsor because I really trust the toys that they make. So all of their toys are made with body-safe silicone that are just the ultimate in quality. They have a really unique motor. It's a low-frequency motor. The vibrations can travel further up into your body and just create a more intense all-over body sensation. All of their toys are extremely quiet. They come with 5 speeds, 7 different patterns. They're waterproof, vegan, and rechargeable. They have so many different toys and products that I love, but one that I want to call out in particular is the Mio cock ring. This is something that I've been recommending to people for years and years. It's a cock ring which has benefits for the penis owner. It can make your erection harder, it can last longer, it can even make you feel a little bit bigger, and it has a vibrator for the vulva owner. So it's a great way of creating more of that oh so important clitoral stimulation during intercourse. It gives both partners more sensation. It's just such a great product. I think it's something that everybody should try out. Visit jeju.com for their Black Friday sale. Go to jejoue.com for their Black Friday sale that runs from November 10th to November 30th for up to 50% off. What do you call a person who speaks 3 languages? Trilingual, right? What about someone who speaks 2? Bilingual. Someone who speaks 1? American. Only 22% of Americans speak a language other than English at home. Start learning a new language this fall and be the exception, not the rule. Because with Babbel, you start speaking a new language in just 3 weeks. I am really excited that Babbel came on as a podcast sponsor because literally weeks before they approached us, Xander and I both signed up for a full year of Babbel on our own with our own money. We both wanted to improve our Spanish. We've just been feeling really disconnected to our heritage and wanted to improve our language. And so we did a ton of research, including asking our entire Instagram community for their recommendations about the best language learning app. And the winner by far was Babbel. Once we checked the app out, it was very obvious to us that it was like such a great way to improve our language skills, and we've been super, super happy with it. Babbel's quick 10-minute lessons are designed by over 150 language experts to help you start speaking a new language in as little as 3 weeks. And all of their tips and tools for learning a new language are approachable, accessible, rooted in real-life situations, and delivered with conversation-based learning. And for me personally, it's just the perfect amount of gamification. You get this great little sound whenever you get an answer right, but it doesn't feel like they've turned it into this infantilizing game. It's just like really perfect, nice, very adult balance. And we're very excited because Babbel has put together an incredible deal if you want to try it out. This is a special limited time deal for our listeners to get you started right now. Get 55% off your Babbel subscription, but only for our listeners at babbel.com/pillow. Get 55% off at babbel.com/pillow. That's spelled BABBEL.com/pillow. Rules and restrictions may apply.
All right, but Vanessa, do we still do it even if we're angry with each other or if we're sick?
Okay, these 2 questions come up so often, and the answer is no and no. So we are not believers in the never go to bed angry rule. We think that sometimes going to sleep, getting a good night of sleep is the best way to address conflict. That's just like a very never go to bed angry is so outdated and unhelpful. So we are not believers in that. And if we are angry with each other or upset or things aren't feeling good, like we are not going to force ourselves to make out with each other. So that's fine. We avoid it. I will say sometimes though, if we've had a day where there's just like, maybe we've been like squabbling with each other where it's like, it's not like a conflict or a fight, but we're just kind of a little bit irritable with each other. sometimes the makeout session can actually be a really great way to like say, okay, let's just like let go of that nonsense and like end the night on a good note. So sometimes it works that way. But yeah, if we're angry with each other, no, we're not doing it. And when we're sick, hell no. Like I am not trying to pass germs around if we are sick. I have like just barely recovered from COVID. I feel like my voice is like 95% of the way back.
That's pretty good. You're not gurgling all the time.
We were not making out when I had COVID.
No.
Like I think that there are a small percentage of people out there who still want to have that physical intimacy when they're sick. Some people even say that they get a little more turned on when they're sick.
Wow.
You do you. But for me, if I am sick, if Xander's sick, I'm not trying to pass germs. That's a big fat no.
I mean, I think that also like there's some percentage of people out there just that really like want to live in absolutes, like want to live in sort of like the binary or the extreme of like, I want to take this piece of advice, and if I'm getting this piece of advice from this expert, they must be saying I have to do it 100% of the time. It's always or never. And I don't think we have any advice that's really always or never. There's always shades of gray. There's always middle ground. Like life is not lived in the absolute or in the extreme. Like life is very much a gray area of things in the middle. And I think advice is all about, here's what we think is a best practice, something to do when it is practical or to do as much as possible. But we can never live this like 100%. Okay, I always 100% of the time always do this, or I never do that. And unless you hear us saying you should never blah, 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 like our advice is meant to be taken with a grain of salt. Like this is something that's great to do if you can, when you can, as much as you can, but not like I have to rejigger my entire life so that I can never not do something.
Well, okay, the next question that we have kind of fits in with that. A lot of people said, what if you just don't enjoy making out all that much?
Yeah, this is a really good question. I think we've actually learned a lot about this through this piece of content. And also, we did a kissing episode early on.
It was one of our first ones.
Yeah, early on in the Pillow Talks history, because we were getting a lot of questions about that. And we found out through polling people in that first episode, like there's actually a lot of people out there that don't love kissing. And I didn't know that. Kissing has always been a part of my sex life, I guess you could call it, my sexual awakening. And I think same for you. And yeah, I never knew that it was like, oh, some people just really don't like kissing, but people don't like kissing for all kinds of reasons. So if you don't love kissing, then definitely don't force yourself to make out. I think you could find another form of physical affection that you guys like and try to do that every night. Maybe that's just like a cuddle or a naked cuddle or a bunch of pecks, whatever it is that you like to do that brings you close together. Then, talk about that and do that. It's not that the making out is somehow better than anything else. It's that for a lot of people, kissing, making out is an enjoyable way to have that intimacy.
Okay, how do you bring it up to your partner without hurting their feelings? And I want to ask this to you because we heard this question a lot from women about their male partners. There were a lot of women worrying like, oh, I'm going to hurt his feelings if I suggest this or if I even say that I want more like non-sexual physical intimacy.
Well, in terms of how to bring it up, I think a really simple way that millions and millions of people have taken is to just share that reel or share that TikTok with your partner or this episode and say, what do you think? Now, when it comes to the hurt feelings, I guess I'm curious, like, what are we talking about here exactly? Is it like you would be hurting their feelings because you are suggesting making out more, and therefore you are implying that they are not making out with you enough currently? Okay. Well, I mean, I guess my first question to that is like, why is that like one person's responsibility in the relationship? It's not like one partner is responsible for initiating makeouts or the amount of making out that you do, and the other partner bears no responsibility for it. Right? Like this should be a joint thing. Like, hey, I think it might be fun for us to do this more together.
Well, I think a lot of women feel like men are sensitive to criticism. You know, we hear a lot of stuff of like men's egos and, you know, they're so fragile. So I think a lot of women are worried that if they say, I want to make out more, that the guy's going to take it as an insult. Like, oh, I haven't been doing it enough. But so I get what you're saying, that like, it's not just his responsibility to make sure you guys are having adequate makeouts.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. Okay. So yeah, there is a whole thing about, you know, yeah, men are really sensitive to criticism. This is not criticism though. This is a suggestion. I think the interesting thing about that, the criticism stuff or the being open to suggestion stuff, is that it's almost it's a chicken or egg thing. Like, yeah, men might be sensitive to this, but it's also like, are we creating an environment in which men are maybe more sensitive because we are avoiding all of these potential conversations? We are not, if we are not giving our partner the possibility to respond to a suggestion or even a criticism, like a constructive piece of criticism, if you have it, if they never have that opportunity with you, they don't have any reps doing that, they don't have any experience doing that. Like, if in the 16 years Vanessa and I had been together, if she had never made a suggestion to me, she'd never given me any kind of constructive criticism, and then she did today, I would be like, oh my God, like what is wrong? My ego, this has never happened. This must be really fucking serious.
So we're babying men, you think?
I mean, I like I said, I think it's a chicken and an egg thing. I think that men don't have a great track record of responding well. So then we avoid putting them in those situations. And so then they become even less capable of responding positively to those situations. So, I mean, I think that there's some amount of like Band-Aid that needs to be ripped off in these cases. Gosh. I think that it's, hey, look, you can't control how your partner is going to respond or react to something. But what you can control is how you show up, what you say, the energy that you bring to something. And so I think that the only way that your partner is going to get better with receiving things like this is, you doing your very best, bringing it up in a calm, mellow, constructive, positive way. And, seeing how they respond. Avoiding the situation isn't going to help you, and coming at it in this like, oh, I don't know what you're going to think about this, but what would you think if maybe I'm not saying that you're doing it wrong, but coming at it from that energy also is like, you're setting them up to be like, oh, she's saying it's not a big deal, but it's for sure a big deal because she's showing me it is.
This is all about the delivery. And I think this question is a reflection of how uncomfortable most of us are with talking openly about sex. We don't have the experience doing it. We feel embarrassed and awkward and nervous. And so any sort of communication feels like a criticism. But here's the thing. There is nothing critical about this nightly makeout.
Yeah, that was my first thought. I was like, okay, but where's the criticism?
There's no criticism there.
It's just in your head. It's this inferred criticism. And I think you also kind of have to take responsibility for like, that's in your head. This is your brain not wanting to do this and coming up with reasons to convince you not to do it.
So of course, if you go to your partner and you're like, we never make out anymore. You never kiss me. There's no intimacy in our relationship. This is all your fault. I can't believe you've let it get this bad.
Do you even know me?
Yeah, like, of course, your partner is going to have their feelings hurt and be defensive and probably not going to want to do this. But that's not how you share this. Instead, you can say something like, hey, I saw this reel today. I listened to this podcast episode. You're not going to get defensive or upset. Like, it's just all about the delivery.
All right, Vanessa, we got a lot of questions about this as well. Like people saying, well, we're already in that place where whenever we do make out, it feels like it should or is supposed to lead to sex. So like, how could you do this?
So that's exactly why you should consider doing this. Like if you're in that place where you feel the expectation, the pressure for it to lead to more, that's exactly why you should consider this.
Yeah, because that you're in a place where basically you are going to inherently make out less and less and less as more and more time goes on. You're going to have less kissing and less emotional intimacy because you are refusing to face that connection.
Yeah, so you want to break that connection that making out is supposed to lead to sex. So if you're feeling like it just feels too high pressure or too high intensity, like you can start with more cuddling at first. Like if just the making out feels like that connection's so strong, back it down and like do, just cuddling or hugging or something like that. But again, it's like if you have that connection, you got to break it.
And I think the other thing is like, yeah, if you're going to work in something like cuddling too, and you are worried that there is this really strong connection, is working in a lot of compliments with that cuddling. Like any type of physical affection that you start doing and it's not leading to sex, it's like, hey, it's so nice that we get to do this. I love feeling this close to you more regularly. I think that really helps too, so that it's, not feeling like, oh, like why is my partner all of a sudden cuddling me more? Why is this happening? It's just, it's a nice way to lay the groundwork to kind of bump it up to the kissing soon.
Okay, so let's talk next about the expectation aspect of it, because this was another area where we got this is one of the top two, areas of questions we got. So I want to read to you a bunch of different questions that we got, ranging in intensity. So we start off with simple, people were asking well, how long did it take before feeling like there wasn't this expectation of sex? One person wrote, I'm the low drive person in the relationship, and I'm worried that the first few nights he's going to think it'll lead to sex, and that stresses me out. Another person said, my husband doesn't understand how to not want sex after kissing. A couple of other people said, my husband hates it when it doesn't go anywhere after. What do we do then? Or that would blue ball my husband. And then we got this really intense one. This person wrote, it would spark rage.
In all caps.
All caps. If it didn't seamlessly, no question, no hesitation, lead to intercourse.
Can I cover that last one first?
Sure.
Leave. Literally pack your bags and leave, right? This is not a healthy relationship to be in. If this is your partner, this is not safe for you. Yeah. And I hate to say it, but that's just like the biggest red flag, alarm bells really, really blaring bad thing. This is not going to get better unless they deal with their rage issue on their own, and unfortunately not with you in the picture.
And yeah, it's unacceptable to rage at somebody for not being open to sex at any point, at any that. It's just completely.
Yeah, I mean that's like emotional and likely sexual abuse.
Okay, so I know that was an intense one. I wanted to include a bunch of different, varieties of questions all along this topic of expectation.
All right, so yeah, let's go back to the beginning and
back to the easier ones.
Let's ease our way into this.
Okay, so of course we understand expectation is something that comes up around this. If you've had that connection that we only kiss when we're having sex, or we only, when we kiss, that's the lead up to sex. Of course you're going to feel a little bit anxious or worried about okay, but so what happens with this? And like Xander was saying earlier, this did come up for us of okay, wait, but I am getting turned on, and what do we do? And does she actually just want this to just be kissing, or are we supposed to lead to more? So there is some of that dynamic there. So I want to talk a bit about practically, if you're interested in trying out the nightly makeout, how to get this set up. So if you have any sort of concern about the expectation, our recommendation is to make a firm rule that it does not lead to anything more for a set period of time. And this is what we did. Initially, I can't remember the exact timeline that we did this. I think it was somewhere around a month. I said, I want to just make out. I don't care if either one of us gets turned on and wants more. I really want us to have this experience of just making out for the sake of making out. So it was very explicitly set up that way from the very beginning, which put us, made sure we were on the same page. of course, like Xander was saying, there was still a little bit of that like,
Yeah, it takes a little time to unwind that. I think it took, probably for me, it took a couple weeks.
Yeah, but
maybe
just like
half
having,
that time.
Yeah,
of the
having
month.
that expectation right at the beginning, I think was really important for us. And one thing that we even did in that very early stage, like there were a few times that we both got turned on and wanted more. And we actually just made ourselves get up out of bed and like spend a couple seconds outside of bed and then get back into bed and kind of like reset. It was like, okay, we did the makeout. That's the end of the makeout. We did our ritual. We're like breaking this up, going somewhere else. And then we come back together and like actually started it.
Ooh, that makeout gave me a little zing.
Little thing. Xander's been, okay, this is like a deep cut for Pillow Talks listeners. You made so much fun of me like months ago for saying something gave me a zing, but Xander has been saying it gave him a zing for like the last week.
Yeah, I'm slow on the
So
uptake.
rude.
I'm slow on the uptake, but
Now it's catching on.
I actually really like it. So
The hot
yeah,
new
if
thing.
you get a little zing, then then just give yourself a moment to unzing.
Okay, so make it a rule. Say, like, I don't want us to have it lead to anything more. I really want us to have this experience of just making out for the sake of making out. And like, it might even help to tell your partner, be like, this is not reverse psychology. This is not me being like, we're not supposed to have sex, but secretly I want you to initiate sex. Like, be really clear with your partner of like, I just want to have this experience.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we're going to talk in a second about, after that set period of time, like what can happen and what our experience with this has been. I think, if you're, hopefully you play this episode for your partner. I think that, for a set amount of time, yeah, you might be dealing with some discomfort, or I don't even know, discomfort's not even the right word, but just some, it can create some charge, and maybe things aren't going to go in the direction that you're used to them going in. But I think long term, there are some huge benefits for your sex life, and long term, this, disconnecting these two things, as much as you might think, oh, well, what are you trying to make it so that like I just don't want sex anymore? It's actually the opposite. Like actually, this practice will most likely cause you both to want sex more, to prioritize sex more, and to be more in tune with your own needs.
Okay, so let's talk about what happens if somebody gets turned on, because this was such a big fear that was coming up for a lot of people. So here's the thing. Your partner is allowed to get turned on whenever they get turned on. We cannot control when we get turned on.
Yep, just like in everyday life, you never know when that thought's going to strike you.
Yeah. So it's okay for your partner to get turned on. And that doesn't mean that it's being disrespectful to you, or it's not obeying the rules of what the whole makeout routine is, even in the beginning of it. Like, your partner is just allowed to get turned on. This came up in particular from women really worried about their male partners. Like, he's going to get hard though. You know what? He gets hard all the freaking time.
Yeah, you just don't know about it.
Well, and just because he gets hard does not mean that you have to do anything about it. Like, a hard penis, if he's hard, he can take care of it himself, or it'll just go away on its own.
Yeah, it also takes care of itself on its own pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's not like it's this like helpless penis that like, oh my God, I'm hard and now you must take care of me. Or like,
yeah, I won't get soft
fine.
again until like you touch it. Like, no, it just goes away.
And
pretty quickly.
Yeah, especially this whole concept of blue balls is so ridiculous. It creates so much pressure on people. Like, so we really need to dispel it. We've talked about this before on the podcast as well. Like, there really is no such thing as blue balls. Nobody's balls are actually turning blue. It's not causing like excruciating pain. Like, when you get turned on and you don't have a release, sure, there is a little bit of a like, I wanted that.
Yeah.
But you know what you can do very easily if you're feeling frustrated, or there is some tension, or you just really wanted to have a release? You have two hands that can take care of that penis, release those balls very easily, very quickly. It does not mean that your partner, or you as the partner, is obligated to take care of it.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that I want to say about this is that discomfort or whatever that Vanessa was just describing, it is relatively proportionate to the amount of time that you have been kind of continuously turned on without it leading to anything more. I think a lot of people get this idea that like, oh, he got hard for a minute, for a couple of minutes, and now all of a sudden he's gonna get blue balls. No, that's not how it works. The only time in my entire life that I have ever felt that sort of discomfort in my groin area after not having an orgasm was the night that Vanessa and I met, and we made out for 6 hours. I walked her home in the middle of the night. I came back home and was about to go to bed, and I was like, oh, this feels a little uncomfortable. You know what I did? I masturbated, and it felt better right afterwards, and that was that. And that's the only time I have ever had that experience in my life. So all the men out there that are complaining about blue balls, sorry dudes, it's bullshit. And to all the women out there that are worried about it, like if you are going to make out for many hours, if that's what you want this ritual to be, maybe that could be an issue, but that is not what we are advocating here. Also, I just want to blow your mind a little bit on the blue balls thing. And if you're really worried about boners not leading to orgasms and any discomfort that would cause, your male partner is hard for a lot of the night when he is sleeping.
On average, men actually have 5 erections a night, and each one of those lasts about half an hour.
Oh my God, half an hour? Mm-hmm. Hold the presses. So that's like 5 blue balls a night by this logic of like okay, how is your make out? We're not saying that you should make out for 30 minutes. Like if he got an erection, it's not going to last that long. Like he's getting that hard or more hard for longer in his sleep every single night. And does he wake up like a maniac who like needs a release? No, he doesn't. And you probably had no idea that this was happening. He's probably not told you that that's happening. And he's probably not told you that's happening because it is not causing him any discomfort. So sorry for all those of you that say kissing for 30 seconds is going to give you blue balls. I'm calling bullshit.
Well, I'll also say, like, even if it does cause some tension or some discomfort, you can very easily take care of that on your own with your hands. So it's nothing to make your partner feel bad about.
And it's also like, I think ultimately it's like, that's the sexual tension thing that we have been talking about. And I think that can actually be a healthy thing to share with your partner too, of like, oh yeah, like I am, definitely, hey, that turned me on. Like kissing you is hot for me. It mm-hmm. makes me want you. And it can be a discussion of like, oh, well, like, hey, like when is the next time that we can have sex? Like, let's make a plan for how we can make the sex happen because I really want you. I like you. I like having sex with you and I want you.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like, let's see if we can enjoy the tension or enjoy the tease, especially in that early stage. If you're making, like, a rule of it's not allowed to lead to anything more, like, let yourself experience that little bit of a tease and, like, enjoy it. The zing. Get the zing. Okay, so going back to this general theme of like the expectation of sex that this creates, I think this is also a reflection of the ways that we really struggle with initiation. Oh, yeah. Like if we're not being clear with our initiation, like all these moments where there's any sort of contact, like this is what a lot of the bristle reaction is about. Is like, I can feel that you're wanting to initiate or you're trying to push the kiss to lead to more.
Yeah, the assumptions.
Yeah, I'm uncomfortable and I'm drawing away and I'm bristling. All this kind of stuff can happen. So we are going to link our course, The Art of Initiation, in the show notes for you. This teaches you how to navigate desire and how to navigate initiating sex in a relationship. So learning how to more skillfully initiate, how to make initiation feel like an actual invitation to your partner that they want to say yes to, and not just like I think he's trying to initiate, I don't really want it, and let me pull away kind of thing. And it also leads you through how to navigate those moments when one of you wants to be intimate and one of you does not, because that's a very frequent thing that happens in a long-term relationship. It's not a bad thing. It's not a sign that you're incompatible. It's just a reality of being in a relationship. And it's so crucial for couples to understand how to navigate these moments. Like for you, if it's your partner who's the one who's feeling desire, for you to understand that it doesn't matter if your partner wants sex. If you don't want to, you don't need to. Like, you don't need to create this pressure on yourself or like force yourself to have sex. But really understanding in those moments, like, how do we navigate that? How do we communicate? How do we actually maintain intimacy rather than completely shutting ourselves down, like making our partner feel rejected? This is just like, initiation is one of the most important skills that couples need to learn. And unfortunately, none of us know how to do it. So we're super passionate about this course and how important it is. And we will link that for you down in the show notes. Okay, I want to read this next question. The thing holding me back is lip balm. I like to wash my hands after applying it. And we got some similar questions. They were like some very logistical questions. A lot of other people were like, not after I've done my skincare routine. Like, he's not kissing me. He's going to wipe all my creams and stuff off. So I just got to say, and I will say this as somebody who has an extensive nighttime routine and very expensive creams and balms and the whole stuff. Guys, we got to prioritize intimacy with our partner over skin cream and lip balm.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the positive impact that emotional intimacy will have on you long term, I think will outweigh the use of those skin products. Yeah, honestly, the better really is. You're gonna get better sleep. You're gonna feel better. You're gonna be more calm. Like less cortisol, more oxytocin. Like those things actually are going to make a huge difference. The skincare is like a Band-Aid to the flesh wound. Like, let's fix the flesh wound.
Flesh wound. Yeah. Wow. No, I mean, I agree with you, though. Like, having that connection, prioritizing connection with our partner is going to have such a bigger long-term effect on aging and all of that. But, like, just the logistical stuff of this, like, and again, I get it. Like, I've had times where we've made out and I can feel you. I'm like, I got to apply my lip balm again. I'm going to have to do the second thing, or, like, my cream's coming off. Like, I do understand it, but, like, it's just not as important as our connection with our partner. So rejigger your nighttime routine however you need to. Maybe like making out the very last thing in bed just isn't going to work for your schedule. That's fine.
Yeah, do it another time.
Make out on the couch before you go into the bathroom and then do your nighttime routine. Like, it's fine. Make adjustments, but don't prioritize your lip balm over your partner. Also, what about some chapstick? I'm holding some chapstick in my hand right here. Doesn't require getting my hands dirty, or not dirty, but like lip balm all over my hand. I'm assuming the only thing they're saying is I like to wash my hands after applying, so it's all over your fingers. But I mean, just put some chapstick on. Oh, that was easy. I'm doing it right now. Here, I'll give you some ASMR. Oh, it didn't make a good click when I closed it. Darn it. All right, and finally, is it okay if it leads to sex more often than not? Okay, so this depends on where you are in the process. If you're just starting it, or you're like curious about starting it, and you feel nervous about the expectation of it leading to more, I say make the rule where you're not allowed to for the first month or however long it is. But if you've been doing it for a while and you're enjoying it, then I think it is fine if it does lead to sex. But I think you want to just be thoughtful about making sure you're continuing to have more non-sexual physical intimacy. So the whole point of why we started this and why we recommend it is because we think it's important to have some physical intimacy that's separate from sex. So if you're finding like, okay, this is just leading to sex like the vast majority of the time, like just do something else. Like maybe it's more cuddles during the day or hugs during the day, or you kiss each other hello and goodbye. Like just add something else. But I mean, I'll say for us, like it does often lead to sex as well. We're still very clear with each other that like that's not the point of it. And I think we have been so inspired by how much we've enjoyed the nightly makeout that we are now making out during the day a lot more often, and like touching each other throughout the day a lot more often. So we've like, we do both things. But I would say, yeah, if it's just leading to sex for you, add something else in.
Yeah, I mean, what I have found with this whole experience is that I am so much more tuned in to my body and my experience when I'm making out with Vanessa, I feel like I am much more able to be quickly turned on and get in the mood because I'm like, oh, this kissing, this is really nice. Like I'm tuned into the sensation of that. And it's like, oh, this is really nice. And if I'm finding myself regularly during that nightly makeout session, like, oh, like, wow, this is really getting me going. That's actually what I found is that's a really good sign that like I'm not prioritizing sex enough earlier in the day. And that's like a good sign to me of like, oh, I think that I have a stronger desire for sex than I have been sort of acting on or initiating. And so that's a good sign for me of, okay, do I need to make some better space sometime earlier in the day to have sex with Vanessa? Now, when we do end up having sex, but following or in, continuing on the makeout routine into sex, because it's right before bed, usually that turns into pretty much like a quickie, I would say, right? Like it's not usually like, cause at that point it's like, we're ready for bed. We're usually pretty tired by the time you go to bed. So like, we're not really wanting to spend a lot of time having sex. And so I'm like, that's not like the only type of sex that I want to be having is sort of that super quick, like, okay, yeah, let's get this done so we can go to sleep. So yeah, sometimes it does lead to sex, but really for me, it just leads to more awareness of like, oh yeah, what are my needs? Oh, am I wanting to have more sex? Like, okay, let me make sure that I'm helping Vanessa out so that during the day, there's a good slot of time that we could do that in. Or, like, what does my schedule look like tomorrow? Like, how can I kind of carry over this energy that I'm feeling now into tomorrow? Or, think back to this memory of, oh yeah, remember, like once you started kissing her for a couple of seconds, you got really turned on. Like, let's try that again at 6 o'clock instead of at 9 o'clock.
All right, and let's wrap this up with some notes from you guys about how trying the nightly makeout has helped your relationship.
I discovered you because of this reel. It has completely changed our sex life for the better.
We just started trying it out a few nights ago, and we feel like teenagers again.
We love it. I get butterflies for my partner of 6 years every time.
I thought this one was so creative and interesting and perfect example of what we say about like take our content and like our tips and ideas and make it your own. Like you don't have to do anything exactly the way that we say it. But this person said, we live in a high-rise building and have adopted it for elevator rides. If no one else is in it with us, we go to town for the length of the ride.
Love it.
That's so great.
So good.
I love that.
Tried it, loved it, no more bristle effect, and we are way more intimate now.
This is how I found you guys, and our sex life has totally transformed because of it. We don't do it so formally, but adding in more non-sexual intimate touch has boosted my libido and lessened my bristle reaction. So with that one, like we didn't talk too much about the libido boosting effect of it because that wasn't really a part of our story, but this was something that we heard from so many people who tried it. They were like, I didn't realize how much I was missing making out, how much I love making out, and what a huge turn on it is for me.
Yeah, and like conversely, it's like you're suppressing your libido in a way by suppressing doing things that bring you emotional intimacy, that bring you that sexual zing.
The sexual zing. I keep thinking about how we need to come up with a name for our nightly. I'm like, we can't just call it the nightly makeout, but like
nightly zing.
Nightly zing.
I was actually thinking
that sounds so cheesy.
You know what I was thinking though?
What?
I was thinking that we've still not come up with a good name for Pillow Talks listeners, and I was like, we call them the zingers.
No. Okay, well, if you have any great ideas for either of those names, what we call the nightly makeout or what we call you, our beloved listeners, DM us on Instagram, Vanessa and Xander.
All right, this person said, boyfriend and I did it every night and noticed huge changes in intimacy and connection. Then when we stopped, we felt a major disconnect. Once we started again, we were back on track. I like this, basically like a little, scientific study. Control, test.
And the last one, best change ever in our 45-year relationship.
Hell yeah.
I love that. That's so freaking cool. All right. Well, we hope that this has inspired you to give the nightly makeout a try, whether it's following it exactly how we did it or putting your own unique little twist on it. And we would love to hear from you. If you do give this a try, come on over to Instagram. We're at Vanessa and Xander. Let us know how it goes. Let us know if there are any other questions that we didn't get to in this episode. But yeah, we'd love to have you as a part of our community on Instagram if you're not already following us there. We post lots of fun content. We have clips of the podcast. We just started recording it, so you can come see us recording. Maybe we'll do a video of Xander's sensual chapstick mid-podcast recording application.
That was good.
But we do little clips and, of course, tons of information that we don't cover on the podcast as well, just like that viral reel that this whole episode is about. So we are at Vanessa and Xander. That's Xander with an X on Instagram. And we will also link the Art of Initiation course for you down in the show notes.
Well, that's it for today's episode of Pillow Talks. Thank you so much for listening. Join us again next week when we do the second edition of Dead Bedrooms.